Well, joining us now in the studio is Dr. Lee Jones. He's a senior lecturer in the School of Politics and International Relations at Queen Mary University of London. Thanks for coming into the studio. How big a turnaround is this in China-Filipino relations, bearing in mind their recent history?
It's a massive turnaround because over the past 3 years, the relations between the two countries have become really quite hostile and frosty. In 2012, there was a standoff on the Scarborough Shoal. Philippine Navy was trying to arrest some Chinese fishermen. The Chinese Coast Guard intervened and basically seized control. And then the following year, 2013, the Philippines sued China in the Permanent Court of Arbitration under the UN Convention of Laws on the Sea, challenging their claim to the South China Sea area. And also the Philippines has cozied up to the United States. They've done joint naval patrols. So the relations became very, very strained. So this is a really significant turnaround for the Philippines, moving away from the United States and towards China.
Why does Duterte want to do that?
I think it's partly because the United States is quite critical of his domestic policy, particularly the war on drugs. Over 3,600 drug suspects have been extrajudicially killed since Duterte came to power, and the US has been quite sharply critical. So that's part of it. Also, Duterte is very close to some Sino-Filipino business interests that are very keen for closer economic ties with China. And there's a lot at stake here. There's not just the fisheries, there's also agricultural exports, oil and gas exploration, and Chinese investment in everything from infrastructure to telecommunications. And all those deals were on the table about a decade ago before some Chinese kickbacks to the then Philippine government were exposed and the wheels came off. So Duterte is reverting back to that strategy of cozying up to China for economic benefits.
And China's obviously welcoming that, embracing that, because you'd have thought they would have taken huge offence to the fact that they lost that court case that was begun in 2013, just a couple of weeks after Duterte took over the presidency. They actually lost that court case, but they don't seem too upset by that.
They were upset by losing the court case, very upset, but they've always had this policy of shelving sovereignty disputes and engaging in joint development with neighbouring countries, as long as it's on China's terms. And they certainly don't want a hostile relationship with the Philippines, and they don't want to give the United States an excuse to up its presence in the region and contain China from Beijing's perspective. So this is a real bonus for the Chinese from their perspective, that they're luring the Philippines away from the American orbit.
And how are the Americans feeling about this? I know we've got an outgoing president, but all the state officials, how are they going to regard what's happening between China and the Philippines right now? We've already seen that Duterte has said, well, basically, you know, the war games, the joint exercises are over and done with.
Right, they've cancelled the joint naval patrols in the South China Sea. I think it's going to be very concerning in Washington because the relationship with the Philippines goes back many, many decades. Of course, the US was the former colonial power, and the US is still widely admired in the Philippines. So to go completely away from the US would face a lot of domestic challenges for Duterte too, particularly from the military. And other domestic interests. And Washington is going to be quite concerned about this because that military alliance with the Philippines is really a key part of their so-called pivot back to Asia to try to confront a rising China. So if this persists and the relationship deteriorates further, it's going to be a real worry.
Really interesting to talk to you, Ian. Thanks so much for coming in. Thank you.